Derek Carr. I do think it's a good chance to segue into Derek Carr and that offense as a whole, because I do have an interesting question. It's in regards to Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed. And I think this is a good topic to discuss because we did have some Olave questions in the chat. And I know me and Steve talked about it. But, this is a crazy stat, but Rashid Shaheed leads the NFL since 2023 with 7 receptions of 50 yards of air distance or more. He was wide receiver 9, I believe, on the week. And I mean, he's just been a monster. But is there a concern if you're an Olave guy? And is there a world in either of your minds where Rashid Shaheed ends up being the better receiver in fantasy in this offense this year?
Yeah, I think it's possible. And certainly, they got away from that 15, 16-year system with Pete Carmichael, and they bring in the young Clint Kubiak with fresh ideas, playing more compression offenses, a lot more motion, a lot more play action. They're getting Shaheed way more involved. He's been the guy in motion, back-to-back big bomb touchdowns from him. And he has the speed. He could burn anybody on the field. And he's a pretty good route runner. He's a smart receiver. So, yeah, I think there is a world where that could possibly happen. But even if it doesn't happen, this is certainly going to eat into some of Chris Olave's production. And we were kind of saying, Derek Carr likes to focus on one guy and just feed him over and over and over again. And, we kind of thought that'd be Olave. But coming into this year with the new offense, there was also thought that Shaheed could get more involved and cut into Olave. And that's certainly what's happening here. So it's possible. Derek Carr has looked pretty damn good the first 2 games. He's thrown 30 touchdowns once in his career. And I remember Anthony and I had a bet last year. I was saying it was possible that Carr could throw 30 touchdowns last year. But he ended up throwing like 24, 25 in Carmichael's offense. So maybe he does it in this better offense. We'll see. I mean, the offense just looks night and day so far. They absolutely go out and smoke the Cowboys 44-19.
Yeah.
Mike Zimmer, he's got some questions to answer as well. But yeah, I mean, if you're I have a home league where I have Shaheed and Olave, and I've started Olave over Shaheed the first 2 weeks, and I may have to go with Shaheed next week.
So, first props to Derek Carr. And, I feel like I did not do my due diligence on Carr because if you go back to Derek Carr, his last few games of last season, he started cooking a little bit. I think the stat was, because I used it earlier, that in his last 5 or 6 games, he's had over 20 fantasy points.
Yeah, he led the NFL in touchdowns like the last 5 weeks.
So, and Derek Carr with the Raiders was a good quarterback. And I think what killed Derek Carr was Josh McDaniels, who killed everybody's career except Tom Brady. And maybe Tom Brady made Josh McDaniels, because Josh McDaniels, I don't even know if he's in the league anymore. So, maybe if Derek Carr was still with the Raiders, we could be looking at a Raiders team that might be owning that division with the personnel they have now. But Derek Carr with the Saints, give him a mulligan for last year. You give him the new OC, and this is a banged-up offensive line, and Kubiak is finding ways to overcome that. I don't even know if Micah Parsons showed up on game day yesterday. That Dallas pass rush couldn't get there. And the way you beat the Cowboys, do what Green Bay did, do what the Saints did. Dallas is not a team, and I think it's similar to the Rams. It's similar to Miami. They cannot play from behind. And a lot of teams can't play from behind, but Dallas especially, you put them in a deficit early, they cannot climb out of it, and the Saints just kept piling on. And defensively, the way you scheme out this defense, do not allow them to blitz or put pressure on you, and it's hard to put pressure and blitz when you're not even getting a third down. I think the first half, I think Derek Carr overall over 10 or 12 yards per attempt. That's just insanity. Alvin Kamara wasn't touched yesterday. So, Kubiak right now, I don't know if a coordinator can win Coach of the Year, but if this Saints offense finishes in a top 5, I would give him my vote if I had one. But, let's take it back to Rashid Shaheed. My issue with him overtaking Chris Olave is he's just not getting enough targets. Only 9 targets the first 2 games, but giving us over 16 PPR points in each of those outings, including 20 yesterday.
3 carries, though, too. He did get 3 carries.
And they lined him up in the backfield. That's more of a Kubiak. I just don't know if that's sustainable. But Olave isn't getting targets either.
Yeah.
2 targets in week 1, 6 targets yesterday, albeit these are blowouts. You don't need to feature him. I think reality will set in one way or another with the Saints, with Carr, with the receivers when they got to take on Philly. Because you're not going to do like that. Like we know Dallas is punk sometimes. Philly's going to come out and fight you.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see when the Saints have to, are down in a game and have to just chuck it around. Then you're going to see those Olave stats go up, obviously, and maybe, obviously Shaheed as well. But as far as Kamara, this is his highest yards per carry since 2020. 3.7, 4.0, 3.9 the last 3 years, and now this year so far, 5.7. So this looks like freaking Kamara in his rookie season right now.
Well, and keep in mind, Kamara, I saw a crazy stat, and the worry about Kamara, and I don't want to dig too deep into Kamara, but, the part of the issue was the injuries, and the offensive line was projected to stink.
Yes.
And he was only touched behind the line of scrimmage 2 times yesterday. Like, Kamara was 5th in rushing yards over expected with 115 yesterday. The play action's working for this team. I mean, Derek Carr was 9 of his 17 dropbacks for play action, which was the highest of his career, 59%. Like they're playing off of Kamara. And if Kamara is running like we saw yesterday, it's only going to help Carr and this offense. And if they can keep working off play action, which is a Kubiak special, his father, Gary Kubiak, he loved playing off of play action. Like that should, that's gonna help. The receivers, it's going to help Carr. I don't know if it's a bold prediction to say Carr could be a top 15 quarterback this year in fantasy if they continue this way. I mean, they've scored on every single drive this season. Every single drive.
That's insane.
That tackle they drafted, Fuaga, has been a stud so far too.
Yep, absolutely.
Let's go to some bad news.